Welcome back to the channel. Look at this. This article is titled Majority of America's Top 25 Banks Now Signal Crypto Plans. It continues on, says over half of the 25 largest US banks are now weighing or rolling out crypto related products. Why now? Why now? Why not last year or the year before that? Something is coming. You see, Ripple is now in the clear. That's part of it. Crypto is being given the green light. That's part of it. The entirety of the banking system is about to change. And the only question that remains, if anyone does have a question at this point, would be through which of these bank coin protocol, or maybe they do it as a group and not just one to rule them all. Which of them does some of this major value flow through? I won't say all of it. I would love to say all of it. I think they all get a piece. Major piece. But we know the legacy system is going to try to still do some things on their own, albeit it probably would not be as well done as what the bank coins are bringing to the table, since the bank coin technology is superior. However, I'm pretty sure of that. So I won't say all of it. But huge swaths of value will move through these bank coin companies. The only question left is which ones. And then if someone can answer that for themselves, they would obviously know the native tokens, native coins that are going to be exploding in price. But something is most definitely coming. But what this says is that it hasn't arrived yet. There's still time. It says that they're weighing, they're preparing, but it goes further. Let's keep reading. It says an August 8th status chart shared by River that tracks the giants across two lanes, custody and trading. The snapshot shows multiple firms moving from the not yet to exploring. That's also interesting. Not yet to exploring. So they haven't made a decision yet on the main or substantive layer of their technology. That could be the XRPL. That could be Solana. That could be Stellar. They don't know. They're exploring. So this also means that it's going to be very important over the next few months to the next year or two to really pay close attention to the news to know what's going on. It says so they're moving from not yet, quote unquote, not yet to exploring to announced. It says or restricted access for high net worth clients, indicating that digital asset offerings are steadily entering mainstream wealth and capital markets pipelines. All right, so this is all good information. If I pause, it's just because as I'm reading this, I'm also processing what's going on, and I'm having all these thoughts just rushing into my mind as we're reading this. It says concrete moves since early 2024 help explain the shift. Morgan Stanley considered letting its 15,000 brokers recommend spot Bitcoin exchange traded funds to clients, working on guardrails for suitability and allocation. See, this right here, in my opinion, folks, you don't have to agree. It's not financial advice either. This is a smokescreen. When they start talking about the banks, these companies know very well who the bank coins are, what they do, the potentiality of them. A lot of them hold bank coins. They're very familiar. But when it comes time and they're writing an article or they're doing an interview, they direct everyone's vision to Bitcoin. Why? Bitcoin is not what's going to save the banks. It's not. I love Bitcoin. Don't get me wrong. That's not its position. So why don't they mention bank coin companies, which, like, let's say Hedera working with a bunch of banks, Chainlink working with a bunch of banks, Ripple working with a bunch of banks. Solana says they're going to work with a bunch of banks. They definitely have a lot of institutional interest. And Stellar has some banks. Algorand has some banks. Why not mention them? Why not speak about them? That's what they do, literally designed for. But they don't. They say, oh, Bitcoin. Why are you doing that? I always question those types of things. And I'm very careful of that. They're trying, you have to understand, a prime strategy for a lot of entities at the top, companies, entertainers, it doesn't matter who they are. Powerful individuals, they like to redirect the minds to where they wanted to go, to give themselves some breathing room to operate, to move. No, not while I'm around. No, you're not going to do that to me. But it continues on here. It says, more recently, Charles Schwab, chief executive, said that the brokerage plans to add Bitcoin and Ethereum trading for customers. Once again, they're directing minds to Bitcoin and Ethereum. All the while, you have all of these meetings taking place between Bitcoin companies and financial institutions. Not only are we hearing about certain deals and things and considerations in the public, but behind the scenes, it's just going wild. You just can't verify anything to really speak on it because you never know what's real or what's not. But I'll say this. We've seen a lot of things that were spoken about behind the scenes come to the forefront. A lot of them. So, I mean, in this period of time, are we to not believe that in this era, of this time period where crypto is at its most unleashed point that it's ever been, even though there's still a little bit further to go, that these companies are not taking a massive amount of meetings? Are we to believe such a thing? I would have to respectfully disagree. But it continues on here. It says PNC went further on the banking side, selecting Coinbase so that wealth and asset management customers can trade crypto directly through their PNC accounts. Okay, now that custody aspect, Ripple has a custody aspect to them. We know a lot of banks are probably not going to want to be involved directly when it comes to custody and services. They're going to outsource that. Then there's the whole issue of siloing, fragmentation, needing of neutral bridge currencies. Where does that come from? Because they don't have neutrality. These banks do not have neutrality. And other countries know that. Hence the dollar dumping. It's not just the dollar. It's the dollar is symbolic of the entirety of the Western system. They don't want to utilize the Western system. So then how do you as a bank in the US have global reach if you do not have a neutral platform? No. They're going to need it. And that's why I have to keep my eye on things like Ripple, where they've established themselves globally with corridors already ready to go. They've been building them for years. That's trillions of dollars at some point. Whenever they choose to snap their finger or flip the switch, whichever you prefer, however you want to put that, that's trillions of dollars. Then on top of that, them going after Swift. Swift definitely needs it. Swift has been hurting. If you're reading their documents, you can see that. If you're listening to what they've been saying, a few times they come out and they actually say something like when they said they were going to work with some companies. That's at the time when they began working with Chainlink, right? A lot of people still don't know that. They need to look into that. Swift knows they need that not interoperability, bridge currency, that neutral layer where they're not looked at as a villain because they helped in the weaponization of the dollar. They did. The dollar would be like a round, and Swift will be like the firearm. So a lot of countries are looking at that and saying, no, we don't want to deal with that anymore. So how do you have these two systems come together? Because they're going to need to. They need each other, whether people like it or not. You need a neutral platform. And that's going to be the conglomeration of Bitcoin companies, in my humble opinion. So these banks here, they know what's coming. They're getting prepared. If they had something lined up for themselves, like they built it themselves, like a lot of these companies tried that. We already saw it and it failed. Like JP Morgan, how many iterations of DLT do they need to fail at before people realize that that's not going to be it? These companies just don't have that secret sauce. But Ripple does. Solana does, Chainlink does, Stellar does, Algorand does, HBAR does. I mean, like I said, and Cardano does as well. Although I wouldn't consider Cardano a Bankcoin company, but they're going to be working with them. They said they're working with Ripple. They need that. That's strong reasonings to, in my humble opinion, support, or I don't want to say believe in, but let's use that word anyway. To believe in the success of the Bankcoin companies to come that are going to push the native tokens to go galactic when it comes to price. I think that's all reasonable, right? See, I calmed it down a little bit for you today. Actually, I'm super tired. I was worn out. This morning was a super busy morning for me, actually. Now let's go here. Oh, so then we have this. So this article is titled DWP Management Secures $200 million in XRP Post SEC Win. Let's scroll down here. It says, in latest XRP news, DWP Management has shared that it secured approximately $200 million in capital across its fund strategies with every contribution in XRP. The announcement comes on the heels of Ripple's recent legal win with the US SEC. which I told people we were going to win. And we did. We won in every possible way. I say we, but I mean, when I say that, I mean anyone who's interested in XRP. Everything was always on our side, and I believed in it. I knew what I saw, and here we are with a victory. And now I'm looking forward to the future when that bank money starts rolling in. Those are the next steps. I mean, there's a few things there, but my interest will always primarily be that bank money. It continues on. It says, in a recent press release, Digital Wealth Partners Management, DWP Management, revealed it has secured roughly $200 million in capital. Why do they repeat these things so much? We're back to that again. Are you just filling up the article? Don't repeat the stuff so much. In my humble opinion, respectfully. DWP Management serves as a general partner for a series of private investment vehicles that accept direct digital asset contributions. These funds are efficient and flexible, allowing accredited participants to contribute XRP directly. This while functioning under institutional grade custody and compliance frameworks, in contrast to traditional fund structures and that necessitate conversion to fiat. Max Kahn, the firm's CEO, said the milestone highlights the growing role of digital asset diversification. There's so many companies getting involved with XRP. Why? If XRP was only going to reach where it is now, and that was it, these companies would not be getting involved. They're expecting some massive explosion. I know that. I firmly feel that they see what I see. And they're looking to capitalize on it. So then it continues. It says he also added that the firm is expanding its infrastructure and offerings to meet the needs of a client base evolving alongside the digital asset space. So listen, XRP is in the driver's seat. There's so many companies trying to get involved. I didn't say that before. Sorry, I was rudely interrupted. But there's so many companies getting involved with XRP. This is definitely something to take note of. They would not get involved with something that's not going to go intergalactic. They're looking to make a good deal of value off of that. So now we're going to move on here to a little bit of Bitcoin news. If this article will load up here. So this article is titled Bitcoin 5 booms $7.39 billion in BTC locked as staking takes center stage. And it begins here. It says, staking has become a central component of Bitcoin 5 with over 68,500 Bitcoins locked, amounting to a total value locked of $7.39 billion. Three protocol, Babylon, Solve, and Lombard, dominate the market, controlling about 85% of total value locked. Scroll down here past the giant Bitcoin picture. Staking has emerged as the, quote, core engine of Bitcoin 5, unquote, locking up more than 68,500 Bitcoins for a total value locked of $7.39 billion, according to a new study from Maestro. The report found that just three protocol, and then they repeat it again. I don't know why they do that. This is the second article that's doing that. It's a strange occurrence. You already said this at the top. Lombard, meanwhile, leads in the restaking category with 14,000 BTC, followed by Solve with 7,000 BTC. Overall, restaked TVL topped $4.46 billion as of June 30th, 2025. So listen, Bitcoin's winning in a variety of different ways. It's looking good. It's doing good. Bunch of companies involved with it. The retail seems to still like it somewhat. I mean, even though, article writer claim there's a lot of selling that has been going on, but companies have been buying up the Bitcoin, which is a good thing in my humble opinion. This is, although staking is a core engine of Bitcoin 5, the report points to ongoing challenges, including below market yields, fragmented composability, and unproven durability. Well, I mean, once it's known, then you can start working on a solution, which I'm going to hope that people have been doing such. It says, reflecting on the continued growth of Bitcoin 5, Maestro said it expects volumes to surge as more institutions add Bitcoin to their balance sheets and custodians activate idle BTC in search of yield and utility. It makes perfect sense to me, which means that Bitcoin's price, if all of this occurs and everything continues to go well, will skyrocket. This is Marvin Burton, co-founder and CEO of Maestro, said, quote, we're witnessing the convergence of TradFi and DeFi into a Bitcoin-denominated capital market. For the first time since 2009, the critical pieces for on-chain financial apps on Bitcoin are in place, spanning exchanges, lending, and stablecoins. Bitcoin is evolving from a static reserve asset into a dynamic, productive financial network. The report data also shows that more than $5.5 billion in TVL, 52,000 BTC, is now deployed across Bitcoin-aligned layers, confirming real developer and user demand. Stacks led all layers in growth, adding approximately 2,000 BTC and more than doubling its TVL in the second quarter. All right, Bitcoin is looking good, in my humble opinion. So now let's go here. We have a little bit of commodities news, just a little bit. So this article is titled "Commodity-Backed Cryptocurrencies Hit 5-Year Minting Record Over Gold Trade Turmoil." I knew that commodities would do well because stable coins, even not just stable coins or any type of crypto that is involved with commodities. It could be digitized. It could just be a raw digitized gold crypto are going to do well because the world loves commodities. The world loves gold and silver as well. And the backing of that, like the support of those things, has only been increasing over the years. So it just makes perfect sense that this would be doing well. It says commodity-backed cryptocurrencies, which are dominated by gold-backed tokens. That's why, see, I knew it. Gold-backed tokens have seen a historic surge in issuance this week, with minting volumes hitting their highest point in at least 5 years. And then people are going to love. I mean, not only can you redeem your gold with a lot of these offerings, so if you want your physical gold, you could get it. But at the same time, you can so quickly move the gold. And a lot of people like to do that. They're not like me. I'm a long-term believer in gold, okay? Some people, not so much. They enjoy its safe haven status, but they're going to move that value quickly in and out of things. And with this here, gold being digitized, being on the blockchain, on the hash graph as well, it can move very quickly. They can make they can make the moves, even though I've used that word probably too much. They can make the moves that they desire. It says the leap comes after gold futures traded above a $3,500 all-time high this week after the Swiss Precious Metals Association warned that the U.S.'s 39% tariffs on Switzerland could have, quote, negative impact on the international flow of physical gold. Both gold spot and futures fell after the initial surge. It says that didn't stop gold-backed tokens from being minted, however. The warning also saw gold-based cryptocurrencies, including Tether Gold, Paxos Gold, briefly top $3,390 before receding. Minting volumes per RWA.xyz data reached $439 million over the week, more than doubling the previous $195 million record seen in 2021. These tokens, which are backed by physical reserves held in vaults, allow investors to gain exposure to the precious metal. Well, we know that. See, at this point, I'm preaching to the choir, but we know that already. But yeah, these things are going to do well. And another thing that's fantastic about this, I think, in the future is that people who are, they're just getting into gold and they've gotten into gold via these digital offerings. I think they'll become more comfortable with gold. They'll learn to love gold more. I think they're going to research gold a little bit more as far as its position in the future, which I think is going to be significant once again. And when I say once again, I mean how it used to be, the standard. I think you're going to see something similar to that once again in the future. I do. I think fiat currencies have a major problem, and many entities at the top know that, and that's why they're moving away from fiat currencies majorly and protecting themselves with gold. And I think so. I think people will increasingly be learning such a thing, and they'll go from just solely having digital gold to acquiring probably a good amount of physical gold. But we shall see. So now that you have that information, what are you going to do with it? I know what I'm going to do with it. So until next time, everybody, let's get to the money.